Hello and welcome back to Tommy's Top Picks Weekly Roundup podcast episode 177. I'm your host Tommy, joined by John.
How's it going?
Good. We had an idea. I had an idea. For episode 200, we may review episode 1 because I thought it'd be cool. We were trying to think of things.
If there's not enough material there because it was our first and it's probably really janky.
I'll find one that there's enough material.
Yeah,
like an early one.
100, and maybe like 150 or something. Or go do like a range, you know? I think that might be the answer. But we're gonna review some old episodes. I think
it'd be fun. It'd be like, how silly were we?
Yeah, exactly. It'll be good.
I think it'll be fun. But yeah, got a bunch of stuff we're going to talk about today. I played a little bit of Magic Standard, and then going to talk about the market, going to talk Final Fantasy, Edge of Eternities, and Spider-Man. And then going to talk about some Commander Box League and Two-Headed Giant Commander Night, and some Eldrazi nonsense. And then we'll wrap things up as we always do with the economic world of reality.
The world.
Yeah. So, John played Dune.
I did. I didn't play any Magic. I'm so addicted to Dune. I'm having a lot of fun. And our team won last week on the server, and there's like this competitive thing between Atreides and Harkonnen, and if you win, in this case, you get to vote on an outcome, and what we voted for was 25% increase in resource refinement. You get 25% bonus when you make stuff. Cool. So that means you got to grind all the resources this week. Yeah. So I was busy in the spice mines.
Fair enough. I was busy in Breath of the Wild. That's where I seem to be able to just find time to pick. That's the beauty of the Switch, is you just find time. Because you can just literally play a minute, and then put it back down. It doesn't matter. You can always pause. You can always... It's just nice. I enjoy it. And I got a bag for it, so I can bring now. That's a whole thing. Like, 1, it's hard to find Switch 2s. 2, it's hard to find accessories for Switch 2s, like bags and stuff, and cases. Yeah. It's like, great, I can travel with it, but I don't have something to put it in that I trust.
Is it so far off of Switch 1 that you can't, like, mod an old case?
So I had a case, but it, like, barely fit, and it, like, was rubbing against the zipper, so I wasn't thrilled with it, so...
Yeah, got it.
Like, it was fine, yeah.
A new toy that you can't get a replacement for if something happens.
Yeah.
No. I agree.
Yeah. So, it was nice.
You got to play some Mill?
Yeah. That Hope Bestium from Final Fantasy. Built a deck around that, and there's a crab in it, of course.
What does that one do? That's the heal Mill?
Yeah.
About that last week, I think.
Yeah, it is one white blue 2/2, and lifelink. At the beginning of your end step, each opponent mills X cards, where X is the amount of life you gain this turn.
Damn, that's even better than I remembered, because it's each opponent. That's wild.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it'd be really good for Commander.
Yeah.
So when Did
you enjoy it?
I mean, I'm losing more now that people. Okay. The decks are getting... No, they haven't figured it out because no one's playing this deck because it's just the My Little Pet thing. But sometimes I catch people off guard and they're like, wait, what? Because it's not standard. It's not meta. Yeah. And sometimes it just doesn't work. And I draw... Because there's two kind of things that are happening. There are cards that are more based on mill, and there are cards that are more based on lifelink. And so if I don't gain the lifelink stuff, it doesn't really go off.
Yeah. Sounds like a balancing thing, and also probably not optimal.
No, it's absolutely not optimal because I built it. So
yeah, it's all good.
But I'm having fun with it is the thing. And just really doing it to keep up with the quests and get gold and stuff like that.
Right on.
So it's fun. But when it does go off, it is very satisfying. So it's one of those things where I may lose more often, but when I do win, it's that much more satisfying.
Yeah, that's fun.
But a lot of interesting stuff going on in the market since this post-Final Fantasy world that we're in now. We were wondering when playboxes would hit MSRP. We were at it last week. We are over it this week.
Yeah, with taxes and shipping.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we were talking. We're at before taxes and shipping. We're over MSRP.
Are you looking at the right thing again, or do you have that WPN filter on again? Because I'm seeing 216.
What? I'm seeing 224, not the WPN thing.
Oh yeah, this is well, that is at MSRP. Isn't MSRP 225?
209.
Oh, it's 209.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but did we just okay. Sorry. Misread our podcast notes.
Well, at him MSRP 209.
Got it, got it,
Yes.
got it. I read the next thing. Yeah, my bad.
Um, but more coming soon. That's the question mark. So I've heard different things. We heard more towards the end of the year, and then we also heard no, it already has a second wave has gone through distro. Which I'm more. It doesn't really matter which one it is because the thing has happened where we are now under 300 of quantity listed, and I have not seen that before. I've been watching this pretty much every day, and usually it does not hit the 200s because more comes back to market. It was bouncing between 3 to 6, 3 to 6, 3 to 6, 3 to 6, and now it's sub 3. So I don't think more is coming to the market in the short term.
Yeah, yeah.
So it is secondary people flipping now to the point where that's where we're at. I don't think it's necessarily stores, or it's the stores that have just had it listed this high the whole time, kind of a thing.
Right.
Which is pretty crazy because I'm now seeing this box go to 250 by the end of the year if we don't get anything else, if not higher. But we did see a slight dip from last week on the collector boxes. They were over 1,200. Now they're at just sub 1,200.
Yeah, I don't think that counts as a dip. It's a nice sentiment, but
yeah.
no.
No, I get it.
Well, we did see a major dip in collector booster displays of the empty boxes. They went from 50 down to $30 to get an empty box in English. They've also now listed the Japanese boxes, open boxes, for $40, and so they're still selling well.
Yep. Great.
So annoyed at that. It's still a thing.
And also that you can list Japanese collector boxes on the English one, even though there is a Japanese listing.
So frustrating. So frustrating.
Like you had to go out of your way to put that note there.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
So I'm keeping an eye on the play booster still. The collector booster, it's gone. It's done.
Yeah, that's over.
But I decided to look ahead a little bit. Next two sets, we got Edge of Eternities and Spider-Man. Edge of Eternities play. We got our first kind of reveals. We talked some last week. We'll talk another one this week. These are the 30-pack boxes, $120. Now it's still very early, obviously. But I don't know. You look at Tarkir, Dragonstorm, and then maybe we just don't have a weak set this year because there's some strong cards in the set already that we've seen.
You know which set it's going to be. You know which set. You're going to cry.
It's going to be Spider-Man, and it's
going to be Spider-Man because everyone's going to be freaking burnt out by then.
We're almost there.
I know.
And then collector boxes for Edge of Eternities are at 330. Those popped. No serialized card in that one.
That's not going to last.
I don't think so either.
That's crazy sauce. I don't understand why that even happened, honestly.
I think it happened because it's such a big difference compared to Final Fantasy, and new players are coming in and they're looking at what's coming next.
Yeah, and they think it's got to. They don't understand.
Standard
set.
There's a lot of new.
Actually, that's a very good point. I bet that is it. Yep. And they're going to be sad if they think that's real. It's not real.
It could, John. Never. It could be. It could be.
It's not. It's not real. It's not real. It will go back down. It's a standard set, unless they have some crazy. Well, okay, there's a chance. Say they have some serialized, like I don't know, Shocklands or something crazy, you know, in there.
There's no serialized.
Whatever. I'm just saying. Say they surprise us with something.
Okay.
Then it would be there, but otherwise, no.
Yeah.
Special super. What do we call it? Twinkle star foil.
Surge.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like there's
foil.
Gonna be something. Yeah, there's gonna be something in there. That's the only thing that makes that happen.
Warp foil.
Yeah, warp foil. I don't know.
Pringle foil.
trail rare, like like the neon inks or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. That's the only thing that makes that real. And
I
even then,
I bet you there
I
could
doubt
be
it.
neon inks in here. That would make sense.
There's what?
I bet you they could do neon inks in here. That would make sense with space stuff.
They could. Oh yeah, they could. They could.
But they did
So,
just
and
do
we
it in
don't
Final
know.
Fantasy.
Yeah, we just don't know.
No.
But yeah, I don't think they will because it's like the coming off the high set. So I doubt they're gonna do anything crazy.
Right.
I wouldn't. You don't risk the equity in a box like that because people are burnt out from Final Fantasy. So like,
Yeah.
there's only so much cash available. You don't want to use your good stuff on the one that's gonna be in the lull.
Right.
So we'll
Right.
see. I could be wrong. It's at 330 right now, which is insane.
Mm-hmm. But looking at Spider-Man, play boxes are at 166 and collectors have jumped to 748.
Yeah, Playbox is actually down.
I know.
That's
But
crazy.
still, but it's down at 166. But it's yeah. I mean that it makes sense to me it to be down at like 166. But uh it is higher than Final Fantasy was at this point
Is it
because it was 140.
at this point? Okay. All right. Well,
So I think people are taking a look at, and I think people are pre-ordering Spider-Man earlier, seeing what's going on with like. So I think one of the Final Fantasy things was so many people pre-ordered for so long that once it actually came to market, it was kind of all allocated for,
Mhm.
and that's why we're seeing the lack of play boxes for Final Fantasy. And so I am predicting the same thing happens to Spider-Man. A lot of people, because pre-orders have been up for so long and it's not till September, we got 3 more months and it's already at 166.
Yeah.
I think just most of the allocation is going to be of Wave 1 will be eaten up by pre-orders.
And they'll probably have a special sale too.
Mm-hmm.
They
Yeah.
tend to do those
Yeah.
towards the end of the year. There seems to be a lot more, and that anything that comes out in that last, not quarter, but third of the year,
Yeah.
tends to have the sales in the direction of Christmas.
Yeah. Or they'll have that play
The-
box sale like they did for Final Fantasy where it sold like a
Yeah,
stupid number.
that's what I think they'll
Yeah.
do, honestly. And they'll be like bonus bucks or whatever, how
Mm-hmm.
they do all those things on TCG Player.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see how that plays out around this release.
Yeah. But if you are interested, I grabbed mine from Game Nerds because they're still 145 ish if you buy a case. So,
It's a winning price.
mm-hmm.
Do you think they'll
And
have a shorter print of it than Final Fantasy? I mean, they have to, right?
I think so. I think I could see this story, right? I'm playing it out in my head
Mm.
where we heard from multiple sources that Wizards extended the print run on Final Fantasy Play to just try and make sure there was enough of it. Which obviously then pushes back the other reprint sets that they're going to do. So I think it's just going to have a domino effect across all play boxes of just the shortage, especially the ones that are high in demand, like Foundations and Bloomburrow and Tarkir. But I think it just kind of puts a backlog of, I think maybe they cut Edge of Eternity's play. I could see that happening. Like it just not get printed as much. Like
The
what's not
capacity.
being printed
Yeah,
because
yeah,
Final
yeah.
Fantasy was.
Yeah, Edge, probably Edge, but I don't think it will be market impacting. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting.
That
That'd be
would
an
be the
interesting.
set to do it, I think, because you don't
I agree.
short print Spider Man.
Yeah, no.
And you have to
Yeah.
imagine stores are going to go crazy trying to get Spider Man off the back of Final Fantasy.
I mean, yeah, that and a lot of stores are comic stores, so
Yeah.
it's even more of a crossover than
Yeah.
Final Fantasy in a lot of ways. Now, Final Fantasy, I think, has a deeper Venn diagram of participants, if you will. But a
Sure.
comic book store is going to be able to sell a Spider-Man product easier. So
Yes, for sure. Yeah, I know it's far away, but it's just I don't know. It seems like the
we'll see.
market's already looking at it.
Yeah, we'll have to do some actual data digs once it's out. Like do the first 90-day comparison against Final Fantasy just to see where it lands.
Yeah, that could be our end of the year. That'll be December then.
Yeah.
That'll be fun.
Yeah,
I think
it'll be.
Final Fantasy
I
will
am
win,
actually
but
super curious. I think Final Fantasy will win too. I'm just super curious where Spider-Man lands. I think Spider-Man has a lot of headwinds against it, i.e., end of a year of big hits. Just there's a lot of stuff going
well,
against
that's
it.
Avatar. Avatar's December.
Oh, Avatar's dead before it even gets here, in my opinion.
Really?
Yes, I don't. I don't
That
think
Aang card seemed
Avatar's.
pretty
I
good.
think Avatar is like God, what was the other one? Like maybe Doctor Who-ish. It's not that level low, but I think it's low.
It's not just the collector and commander boxes though.
I understand. It's
Okay.
the level of hype around Doctor Who and Avatar in Magic communities, I think, is similar. That it's there. It's not non-existent, but I don't think it's like anything close to Final Fantasy, Lord of the Rings, Spider-Man,
No.
even any of that stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
There's a crossover, but it's not. The Venn diagram is much further apart
It
than.
skews younger, and younger doesn't mix well with magic typically.
Yeah, that's true. There's other games.
Magic's an older demographic.
Typically, yeah. So, anyways,
But that
I
could
don't
be
know. We'll
changing
see.
with all these Universe Beyond.
It definitely is. They're trying to push on
Yeah.
making that happen. So it is. The question is, how far have they come?
Yeah,
Does
right.
it work for this? We'll see. I mean,
Yeah.
Avatar will be an interesting test case. Like, okay, maybe our demographic thought process is totally off. We'll
Yeah.
see. But I really think that one's going to be a flop, basically. Maybe not quite a flop, but not like Doctor Who wasn't a flop. It was actually successful. It wasn't like the thing people were hyped about. Put it that way.
Sure.
So, and I feel like Avatar is going to be similar, especially coming off of this year. Come on.
Yeah. No, this year's insane. But yeah, I don't know. Those are the things I've been looking at in the market, and yeah, I'm set. I got my Edge of Eternity's case on the way, and my Spider-Man case, the first one. Yeah, excited. And excited to draft Final Fantasy again because that was really fun.
When does that come back?
I don't know. Like I have the box open that we opened.
Oh,
so I'm ready
yeah.
to...
Gotcha. And
Next
in
time.
person. I thought you were talking about on Arena.
No, I still haven't done that. Life's
it's
been
not
life.
Up is it?
I think it's in Quick Draft now.
Okay, yeah. Then move to the other one.
Yeah.
I might try that out. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, the shop is still selling Flesh and Blood first edition stuff.
Nice.
Surprised by that. Yeah.
I paused my shop due to life stuff.
Of course, really? I'm shocked. Yeah, of course you did. Of course you did. You would be insane not to.
Yeah. I was just like, what am I doing? I can't keep up right now.
No, and it doesn't matter. It'll be there when you come back.
Exactly.
It's very easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I haven't sold much recently.
Yeah.
A few little things here and there.
I did notice a dip when people were really boycotting TCG Player.
Oh, were they?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that happened. What happened?
Union busting kind of stuff, laying off a bunch of people because they moved from New York to Kansas or Kentucky or something.
Oh shit, that's crazy. I didn't even know about any of that.
Yeah, and they even put a pause on TCG Player Direct for a little bit while they were moving the inventory. So, yeah, a whole bunch of stuff's going on with TCG Player.
That tells you how much I keep track of things. I had no idea.
Some of it was in the emails from TCG Player to the stores.
You think I read that spam?
I read headlines.
Yeah. For me, it's spam. For the most part.
That's fair.
It's just like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Does it keep working? Can I turn it on? Can I turn it off?
Yeah. Cool.
Check clear. That's it.
That's fair. That's fair.
That's all I care about.
But the other thing we're going to talk about, Wizards announced Commander Play events featuring Sealed and Two-Headed Giant. So the first one is Commander Box League, which is something I've heard other stores talk about doing, and it sounds really cool. I think I've even brought it up on the podcast before. But basically, you'll construct a 60 card deck out of the contents of a single play box. So you buy a box, and obviously, you can use any basic lands. You can include anything you open inside your play booster box, but not any promos you receive. That means you can include the contents of the box topper packs, but nothing like buy a box promos. The deck can include multiple copies of cards you open with the same name, and you can ignore color identity rule in deck building. Play any legal commander you open, then fill your deck with cards of any color. The color identity of your commander still applies to cards like Arcane Signet or explicitly refer to color identity. Games are
So,
what?
sorry, I just have to respond to that. So it's not Commander because all the rules of Commander are ignored.
Yeah. Games are played in pods of 3 or to 4 with the normal commander rules. You start at 40 life, track commander damage, and so on.
Okay, that's the Commander part. Got it. Yeah, all the building stuff, like they bypass to make it work so they don't have to construct a box for it, right? Which that's fine. It makes sense. I'm curious how that plays. I'd try it, but you need a pot of 4, right? It doesn't work.
3 or 4.
Oh, 3 or 4. Okay. I'm curious to try it. I think it's definitely them trying to capitalize on the fact that a lot of stores run Commander Nights.
Yeah.
And so they're like, make it a product thing. WPN.
Here's a way to sell product.
Yeah, exactly. Which
that
is fine.
aren't just the commander decks.
Yeah, that's fine. I am 100% supportive of that. I think if they're going to do this long term and want it to actually succeed, they're going to need to make products that do this well, right? And maybe tweak the rules. The color identity thing, I'm not so sure I buy into. That's like a big chunk of Magic.
Yeah, and if we do it,
everything Eldrazi, is that basically what it's saying?
Yeah. If we did it kitchen table wise, though, we could just make that a rule, though.
Make that a rule. Yeah, I bet it doesn't work though, because the way the balance of the colors in the box and all that.
You'll probably have a weak deck.
Yeah,
because you can do multiple. Like you would still include the you're allowed to have multiple copies thing. Yeah. I think because of that. Otherwise, you're just playing every colored card of the set for those colors.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it works. I'd have to try it and then tweak it.
But... Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I would pick Winston over that any day, but.
Well, yeah, you need 3 people for one.
Yeah, and a whole box per person.
Yeah, and you spend the whole box to do it. No, it's not per person.
Yeah, it is.
It's a box per person?
You open a play box, John.
I thought you opened a play box for the pod.
No.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure. Here, you'll build a brand new 60 card commander deck from the contents of a play box, then play games throughout the week.
Oh.
You open the whole box. And you're building your deck out of the whole box.
And there's no color limitation?
Yeah.
Why? Why no color limitation? You have a whole freaking box.
There are only 30 packs in a box now.
Still, that's a lot. I don't get that.
Yeah.
I don't get that at all.
Yeah.
I'm very curious to see how that plays. I don't think I'd play that though, because this is going to be expensive.
It would be expensive.
Who's going to pay that? I thought it was split. Like splitting it, okay, 3 people, 4 people to a box. That's affordable. People will do that.
Yeah.
Each person has to pay $120 or whatever the play booster box is. That's absurd. No one's going to do that.
Exactly. But think about it. Think about all the people that, they buy a box each set, right? That's their limit. That's what they do. What if they could, and they open it for cards. And what if they could have a format where they got to play with just those cards for a little bit? Instead of just opening it, then putting it into your inventory.
Well, yeah.
Not your store inventory, but you're like your
I get you. That's true. And then
because it's not like you're doing this forever.
And it does say like you use that deck for like a week. So they're saying it's going to be a league over the course. So it's not just a one shot use. It's not like draft where you're like, you open your packs and then that's it for the night.
No. And then I think the way it works is if you are losing, you're allowed to add a pack. Like for every amount of losses, you're allowed to buy a pack from the store and add that to your inventory for the league.
Oh, is that a thing? Is that really it? Oh, okay.
It's not in the rules here, but that's typically how I've heard it explained to me. from, I think Gone Road Games has a couple videos on it, and it sounds really interesting. It's just
Well,
kind
that
of,
is actually more interesting
yeah.
than what that describes. So
Like there
that's
are like if you got screwed in the RNG of your box, like you're not out of the league. Like you still have a chance in other packs. But and then it usually they'll do it like they'll just keep it so you can only play with those cards, and then the next set will come out because it's like every what 2 months.
yeah, yeah.
And so then the next set you just start over again, and there's a new league, which I think it
That's
could be pretty
okay.
fun.
That's yeah. It's a different thing than I was thinking. It's so I'm back on the other side of buying a box makes sense if it's a multi-night sort
Yes.
of
Yeah.
league event thing with an ongoing thing. That's a different story. I was totally misinterpreting how that
Yeah,
was
and there are
described.
multiple ways of doing this, right? Like it could
Sure.
you could make it more fun as well if you did do the color thing, like add the color requirement, you could also have it so you're not opening, you're drafting every single box. So like
Draft off. No, that's ridiculous.
that would take a
No,
whole night.
Tommy. No. No one's doing
And you
that.
can play
Some
multiple
people do
copies,
that.
so you just grab all the red and white 1 and 2
All
drops
the no,
and then
no, Tommy. No. No. We're not doing that.
just an idea. You can shoot it down, it's fine. But
Yeah,
then the
that's
other
cool.
one actually does, the other format does sound pretty fun as well.
Yeah.
The two-headed giant commander knight. So looking to share the joys of commander with your friends, a two-headed giant commander knights players can join forces in 2-on-2 games of commander. Here you'll team up with another player of your choice or be paired with another attendee for some casual multiplayer games. If you're looking to introduce a friend to the in-store play. Yeah, so that's what I think is the magic of this format is it allows a very comfortable and relaxed setting for you to
With
bring a
the team.
friend and
Yep.
basically be like, "Hey, we're on a team.
Let me help
Let
you out
me
with
see
your
your
hand.
hand.
Yeah,
Let me."
here's how it is. You can't really screw up because it's a combo, right?
Right,
Like,
right.
yeah, it's totally the right move.
And I think it's yeah, because I mean, all these new players that are coming in, I imagine are going to Commander and
Oh,
not
sure.
really other formats yet. But I feel like it's the ramp is like Commander, Standard, or Pioneer, Modern, or whatever you find yourself in, and
Probably
then
standard because they don't have
yeah,
cards,
true.
you know. And
Yeah,
then and drafts,
yeah,
Friday night drafts, if those still are a big thing.
yeah, yeah.
I don't know if they are, honestly.
I don't
I
think
think
draft is.
Wednesday nights
Yeah,
are, and so this is just a way to capture that a little bit.
yeah,
Because I think those, because they're like run your own events in the app,
yeah,
they don't capture the info that they want, which now they will because it's two official ways to play Commander.
yeah.
So, yep, yep. It makes sense with the new owning Commander, right? That they want to now get Commander pipeline under their data, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they can track stuff and then start making products around it. I wonder how long that will take. So they took over Commander what, like 6 months ago, something like that.
Sure.
Um, give them 2 years from that point, and then we'll start seeing products that are specifically designed for store Commander play stuff,
I
which I guess
believe
they
it.
kind of have with the, you know what I mean? Like the people buy the 4 Commander boxes and then they just play against each other, but that's not really the same thing as what I'm describing.
Sure. And they could have known this was coming, and have built future. Maybe that's what they're doing for Spider-Man, since there aren't Spider-Man Commander decks.
Maybe.
Maybe the Spider-Man deck boxes are
Just a good
built
job
for
of this.
this.
Yeah, could be. Could be. They probably would have had enough time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, interesting stuff coming in the world of Magic for sure. I will maybe try one of these out. I don't know if I want to commit that much the kind of time necessary for the box league thing.
No, no.
But a
But
giant
another.
sounds fun because I'd bring some janky stuff. I like my janky decks.
But so
Just
here,
to see if I could get them to go off.
yeah, and we can always test Commander Box League through like those random pack generator things, and then you just
That
export it, and then you can build a
sounds like
deck.
such a nightmare. I don't want to build a digital deck.
I'm just saying.
Like, how would you even do that? That seems like such a nightmare.
Well,
There's
there are
so many
those sites where
cards.
you can draft sealed or simulate
Yeah,
sealed.
I get it. He taught 30 packs.
Yeah.
But you're not drafting them. You're just 30 packs.
Right. That's what the league is.
And then you got to take that giant
I
pile
suggested
and turn
drafting it and you
into
shot it
packs.
down.
What's that? You
I-
suggested drafting it? Yeah. I don't think it's a good idea, Tommy. The draft would take a week in itself.
I know. It's like fantasy football. The draft is the first day.
Yeah, actually, yeah, it would be like that. You're right. You're right. That's funny. Well, we do have a piece of jank we should discuss.
Yeah.
It was leaked jank. It is
The
the anti-casual. It's not actually called that, but that's what I'm calling it. It's the anti-casual. This is the try-hard Eldrazi. That's my official name for it. The try-hard.
Yeah.
Cost 6.
Mm-hmm.
When this creature leaves the battlefield, draw a card. Then you may put a permanent card with mana value less than or equal to the number of lands you control from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Just free shit in Eldrazi. That's very normal. We love that. Except for Warp 4. You want to read this?
Calling it now. I messaged John when I saw this. Warp is a mistake. You may cast Warp 4. You may cast this card from your hand for its warp cost. Exile this creature at the beginning of your next end step. Then you may cast it from exile on a later turn. Doesn't specify when.
Yeah, and it's if it was right away, this would be
if it was
broken.
on your next turn.
Yeah, this would be less broken, but it's not. And by the way, this 4 and 6 with the trigger is a 7/5. So it's not even a small boy. If this was a 1/1 or something like
yeah,
if this is something less dramatic, I would be like, oh, this is fine. It's no. You draw a card from this, and you get free cards to drop down based on the number of lands you have in a colorless, and then you get to do it a second time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, no. That's too powerful.
Mm-hmm.
The anti-casual. The try-hard Eldrazi. This Eldrazi is trying.
It's... but the warp thing is what I think is broken. Because basically you can't interact with exile. So it's basically a card they have in hand till played.
You can't. What are you talking about? Nah.
How do you interact with exile?
You have until the end of turn, right? When you may cast this card from your hand, right? Exile this creature at the beginning of your next end step. The whole turn. They can exile during that turn.
Oh, yeah.
It fails. Yeah, you can interact with this. Not to
No. If it gets into exile, you can't interact with it.
Well, yeah, once it's in exile, it's a timer hanging over your head that you can see coming a million miles away and has some nasty freaking features to it and gives free extra Eldrazi after the fact. Yeah, so it's gross. It's definitely gross. Warp, I think, is... I mean, there's other things like Warp. This is just very aggressive version of it, right? It's definitely high value, especially in this particular...
But then even if you do interact with it, you have to use a pretty high cost removal to get rid of a 7/5. And then on top of that, then
there's plenty of things that get rid of a 7/5. Think of all the Path of Exile. Think of all the cheap exile stuff or removal stuff. And in fact, it could even be just killed, right? Although you're right, 7/5 is hard to overcome. There's removal. There's removal.
Yeah.
For it.
No, I'm not saying there isn't, but they only paid 4 for it. It's not like they paid the 6.
Oh, I understand. But you have to stop it. You have to stop it, Tommy.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying. So big. Is that then that forces your hand to use your removal then?
Yeah. But. So there was speculation and questions whether it'd be Eldrazi and if Loot was Eldrazi, and this is confirmation. Loot's Eldrazi. Well, it's confirmation that it's Eldrazi in Edge of Eternities at least. Yeah, it's a gross one. Yeah. All Eldrazi are gross, but this one's pretty nasty.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Now, you see at the bottom how it has R0001. Does that mean this is the first card in the whole set?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty typical for a colorless to be.
And it's rare.
Yeah.
As a first card, is that usual though? I thought maybe it is.
The thing I remember is the trend for this is like Ugin in Core 21 and What was the other one? In the faceless something in, I want to say murders.
Okay. Both
Both
colorless.
colorless in slot 1 of the set.
Got it. And probably rare or higher,
Yeah.
right? I
Yep.
would assume.
Or
Yeah.
token, rare token.
Oh, token. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, I actually never mapped Magic. You know how I did all that with all the other stuff and
Yeah.
was very into it? Yeah, I never mapped Magic. So I'm like, is that normal? I don't know.
Yeah.
Thought about it.
It's not always, but it's sometimes. It's often enough to be a trend.
Yeah, makes sense. Interesting. Well,
But all
it's the
the other
first one.
colorless will
Oh,
be later. It like number 2 will be white. The first alphabetical white card.
oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah. Seriously, don't know how they map it.
White, blue, black, red, green, alphabetical. Or colorless land. No. The colors white, blue, black, red, green, multicolored, colorless land.
Okay. If he says that that's the numeric order,
Yeah.
the index order.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I've
Well,
put it together enough of the, remember when I would put together the
oh, I
binders?
know. I know. That's why I'm listening to you because I know you know. I've
Yes.
never mapped it. That's why I was like,
Yeah.
okay, grant me your wisdom here,
Yeah.
Tommy, because
Yeah.
I knew
Yeah.
you would
Yeah. Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah. On to economics.
All right. I'm ready.
Anything else? All
No.
right. So, actual positive news this week. We got a bunch of data, like a bunch of data. Uh, Downside for the data that we got in this first chunk that I'm talking about. The Q1 GDP was actually down half a point. So it was downgraded. If you guys recall, we talked about this, how it was like, I think it was positive 0.3 or something. I don't know. It was very flat. It was basically near zero.
Yeah.
And I remember talking about it and being like, you can't really trust this number. It could go down, it could go up. We'll have a better idea. If it's down, it means we have a potential for a recession already in play, but we won't know for 6 months. You guys remember that conversation if you listen. Anyways, it now has been downgraded. This is kind of what was expected based on all the tariff finagling and all that stuff we predicted. So downgraded. So we have a negative quarter now. We have the rule of thumb, which I hate. You guys know, roll my eyes every time I talk about it, where it's 2 negative quarters
Mm-hmm.
equals a recession. I don't count that as a recession. It is actually defined by a complex set of other financials and whatever. If we get that, I still probably won't count as a recession. And I said this under, was it Biden administration or whatever, when everyone was freaking out saying it. I was like, no, I'm going to say it under Trump too, because it's not about my politics. It's about how math works.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If we get another negative quarter, I will probably roll my eyes and not say it's actually a recession, because frankly, a recession is determined much later by a lot of other data. It will be rule of thumb recession, quote unquote. If the same people out there who are screaming about it with Biden don't scream about it with this, you'll know that they're more interested in politics than math. Um, that said, it will probably be, as of this rewrite of Q1, a very flat recession, which is a non-threatening one, typically like we've seen in the past, where it's just 2 quarters and then it goes back to growth. So if that's the case, it's recession prevented sort of thing and not that big of a deal. I don't know where we will land. Like if I'm going to give my gut prediction, because I've definitely been seeing, okay, risk factors, risk factors, risk factors. But this week's news is actually almost a pivot point on a number of fronts, where you're starting to say, okay, maybe we dodge some of this stuff. Now, there's one big one, which we've talked about in the past, I'll bring up towards the end, which is the most scary. But with all the other signs, they're actually sort of like softening towards positive. So perhaps we'll be okay. Job data upbeat. That was the second big chunk of this data that came out. That was pretty interesting. We didn't have a lot of layoffs. It was kind of flat on the new openings front, so people aren't moving much. Like basically everyone's battening down, holding
Right.
on to their money and starting to save because everyone's worried, right? Which is actually a good thing. That helps prevent these things, right? When it happens, people don't get caught off guard, and so they actually are prepared for downtrends and appropriately respond, and therefore the economy rights itself, which would be awesome. Um, so pointing all that out, Q1 down to negative 0.5, again, practically zero. Doesn't really count in my mind, but if you're going to rule of thumb it and be official, that's
Mm-hmm.
the the rule of thumb, and then the official we won't know for a while, and they'll probably actually discount it because of the jobs information in the last quarter and in this quarter, right? They'll probably say, actually, no, that doesn't count as part of a recession. If I was going to guess how the official board goes, because like I have a vague sense of all the other pieces they use for it. I've looked it up more than once, but I don't remember it off the top of my head. But it's a lot of things, including job data and that sort of thing. And we're not seeing the massive job losses that typically come with low GDP and indicate a real recession. So I would doubt that they count Q1 towards a recession unless Q2, we get to the end, we look at GDP growth and it's like -3 and then gets downgraded another point. You know what I mean? Like if it's dramatic this quarter, which my gut says no, I don't know about you. Are you still spending money on stuff? I
Yeah.
know I am. Not like I was before, right? Like I'm not spending a lot,
No.
but I'm still spending. I'm not in a total freeze, so I doubt GDP's dropped completely, unless tariffs really did jack up this quarter and it's not apparent to us yet. Possible.
ABB, always be
Yeah,
buying.
yeah, it's possible. But I'd still, again, so if we have this 0.5 and then say a -3, I'd still probably roll my eyes like I did under Biden and say, yeah, technical or a rule of thumb, recession, sure, if you must. 101, Econ 101 stuff. But reality is probably not a recession until we get to end of Q3 and see some real numbers continuing a downward trend. Then I'd be more convinced. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen unless we end up stuck in stagflation, which is possible. That is the big bad thing that I was alluding to momentarily or a moment ago. But before we dig into stagflation, Chinese port activity, more positive news. Basically, on the trade deal, which was, as far as I know, still just a framework of a trade deal, and I don't believe it's officially signed yet. But the point is, the markets reacted to that and said, buy, baby, buy. So they started buying stuff from China again. The port activity has surged dramatically. I guess they're expecting to not pay any tariffs or minimal tariffs. I don't know. The tariffs were still in there as part of the framework. So, and if nothing's done, you don't know exactly what you're going to get. But maybe there's been some quiet signaling to executives from the administration, like we're going to get this worked out,
Yeah.
And so they're buying again because they don't want to have that big gap get too big, right? Say, because we saw the data drop and it was like the lowest port activity for whatever years. And now it's resurging, so they don't want a longer gap than necessary. So they're probably betting on that getting worked out one way or the other. And frankly, it would be insane not to. I think we talked about this a couple pods ago. It would be insane not to work that out for both China and America. Like it's really dumb that the contest happened in the first place. Our two economies are very integrated, and while I think China has more to gain by being a stickler for it, they also like money.
Yep.
And America likes to spend money, so I think coming to a conclusion that makes sense for both parties is very realistic to see it happen. It has not been handled well. I don't think we have ended up in a better position than we were before. I actually think it's worse slightly. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a tenable position for all players at the scale at which Chinese and American economies interact. It's like, well, who cares? Like, get it done. Figure it out. Like, okay, margins have to shift. We have to shift this or that, right? But get it done because it's too much. It's such a high percentage of global activity. It's hard to imagine it not getting worked out. So some positive news. We have multiple positive newses. Now on to the scary sad part. JP Morgan just came out. This is, I think, Friday. Their models are showing that the tariffs have induced stagflation. I think we see that. The next number is core inflation is up 2.7%. So we are seeing inflation tick up. Again, minute amounts. I just like before when it was coming down, minute amounts. You don't want to credit it a lot either way.
Sure.
It's small. It's incremental. It's not a real threat. It's nothing to be super interested in because it could just be noise, like up and down each quarter, right? It happens. But JP Morgan looking at their models and saying stagflation is a higher percentile probability. And I think they're in the like 60% range of happening. You get the tariffs work out with China in a way that's reasonable and not too inflationary, then we can dodge that because stagflation takes a while to really settle in. We've definitely been dancing with it for like 2 years. I've talked about how many times, so it's possible. The question is what kicks it over into, yeah, we're there. We're not there yet. It's just tariffs help add to the probability of it. And now with the tariffs being kind of pulled back a little bit, maybe we end up okay. And then that could be part of what we're seeing in that first set of data I was talking about. Is like people are seeing the path to the light, right? They're like, okay, this was a risk, this was a risk, this was a risk. Okay, that risk is no longer there. That's being unwound. That's getting worked out. So it's like slowly people are saying, "Oh, maybe by end of year we'll be okay. We'll see." I still think there's a chance that we see some sort of dramatic drop just because everyone's been on edge for so long. It doesn't really take much but like a mouse sneeze to make those things happen. But I think at this point, assuming all this data is accurate and correlates to reality, um, at this point, if you get that trigger event, I feel more confident that it would be a quick drop in recovery as a basically release of the anxiety around this stuff, some economic things that need to be unwound because they were set up for a different economic structure,
Mm-hmm.
and then a repurchasing into the new, economic realities of the tariffs that are going to still be in place, whatever they are, and the various other factors that are playing. So basically, it's like a restructuring of parts of the economy to fit the new reality. Does
Mm-hmm.
that make sense?
Yeah, yeah,
That does typically happen when there's like all this kind of anxiety about what is going to happen, and then the answer is this other thing, and it was one
yeah.
of five scenarios you were ready for. Well, now you have to go all in on that one
One,
scenario,
yeah.
which means you re concentrate assets in a way that's structured for what the new reality is. And we're getting to that point where clarity is becoming more and more real. And that's when the assets move, which again, I think that's what is reflected in that initial data chunk that we saw. That's like, okay, yeah, markets are moving towards a more probable future reality that's not, uncertainty, right? The
Mm-hmm.
uncertainty is being unwound, put it that way.
Yeah.
So so that's where it is. That's actually some pretty good economic news, I would say overall. It was a good week in econ data. Now, reality check, still tariffs on other countries, which
Mm-hmm.
all come into full effect soon. So that's going to have an impact. I don't think those were ever that terrifying because our trade with them aren't as big, right? It
Right,
will
right,
affect things, but it's not going to be the end of the world. And the tariffs aren't that big compared to the China one, right? So
right.
that's the other factor. So it's like a double kind of minor issue. Will have impacts on certain things. Like, I mean, don't buy an Audi. I'd assume that's going to be a problem, right?
Yeah.
Um, but other things it will be fine. So it will impact various industries. It'll be spotty how it happens. But yeah, other than that, I mean, everything else seems to be kind of sorting out. You do have the layoffs in court still. So I guess if the Supreme Court rules on the federal layoffs and they do a massive sweeping layoff,
That would
because
be bad.
that would be another thing that affects like employment data,
Yeah,
right?
right.
So, but they did like it was pretty spotty. I was keeping somewhat of a close eye on it, and it's like 10K here, 20K there, which isn't small when you look at our
No.
economic level, but it's not unemployment adjusting, right? Especially since most of those people are highly educated and probably able to find other jobs relatively quickly.
Yeah.
So you have to weigh how that impacts things. And since it was small chunks at a time, and we had this with the tech sector last year, if you recall, there was like 10,000 at a time, 20,000 at a time, and
Yeah.
and that didn't have a big negative impact on employment either, if you
No, we were
recall.
looking for it.
Watching it, yeah, I was waiting for it, and it never quite happened. And that's one of those things where it's like, okay, that's what happens when it's just small little bits of readjustment. Then it doesn't have a massive like scare effect. So assuming the court cases drag that on for a while and we don't get 2 million laid off simultaneously like was originally the plan, as soon as that gets settled one way or the other, that creates the certainty around employment, and we'll see a different shape on the other side of it as far as what kind of predictions you can make on general unemployment numbers and what that looks like. So yeah, tariffs will still have an impact. They'll hit the jobs at the edges. The China tariff is the biggest one, and I think the fact that people are buying again indicates that everyone is almost saying all clear on that, whatever the answer is there. And yeah, it will affect prices, causing inflation. Oh, there is one thing. Oh my God, this is the one thing that's terrifying. You don't want this. Trump is saying he wants to replace Powell with someone that does what he wants.
Oh,
If
yeah.
he does that, like Powell's done at the end of the year. It's his term,
Yeah.
and so Trump is replacing him. But if he replaces him, like if the Fed allows him, because I think they have to. I believe they have to put their person up, and that's the only people he can choose from. I believe that's the law. But if he somehow circumvents that, um, he puts up someone that just does what he wants, it's going to be a problem. Because that will be. Yeah, I actually don't know how that will play out. I need to think about that. That was just news this week, and I actually want to dig in a little bit and look at the data of what would happen if you dropped interest rates in a light inflationary economy. Would that just boom inflation like crazy? Because all the money would flow to assets. I think it would just boom inflation. I need to look into it.
Yeah.
But that is the one thing by
I would,
end of
yeah.
year we'll have answers, and that terrifies me.
And the
That
stock
said,
market will go crazy and everyone will be like,
yeah,
oh my God. But the
yeah,
dollar will be worth nothing.
yeah, and that's another thing. People are like, "Yay, the S&P is record highs." Yeah, record highs, except the dollar is now reduced by 12% on the
Yeah.
year.
Yeah. So actually,
It's not actually. Yeah, the reason the
actually,
price went up is because the dollar went down.
yeah.
It's actually kind of sad. So think about that. You were in a better place when the market was at the exact same level last time because
Mm-hmm.
the dollar hadn't declined as much. But all that aside, if you live in dollar world, it doesn't matter much because you're not doing international trade. So that like
Right.
dollar up, dollar down doesn't make a big difference in your life
Right.
until you get output or inputs from outer goods areas. So it will matter for Chinese goods and things like that and the ability to trade. The deficit is getting worse. There's definitely some negative repercussions of this we're seeing, but they don't hit day-to-day people or cards or anything like that.
Right.
So it's just like, like I said, a shifting of the structure of the economy. Um, but yeah, we'll see how this all plays out, and we'll see how it all plays out. I don't know, but yeah, I hope he doesn't change the Fed guy, or I hope he doesn't get a toady. If he gets a toady, like that's all chaos. I mean, what will happen is we'll have our Liz Truss moment. He'll drop interest rates. He'll say that's what we're going to issue bonds at. No one will freaking buy it at that rate because they'll see too high a risk in America, and then we won't be able to pay for our debt. That's how that plays out. But what the impacts of that are, I'm not sure yet. I need to dig into it.
Yeah.
So I don't think it will happen. There's too many vested interests to prevent that from happening, and I don't think and like we've seen Trump change his mind on things from a phone call with the CEO.
Oh yeah.
It'll just take a bank calling him and being like, no. And
Yeah.
he'll be like, okay.
All
Like,
right.
yeah, you know what I mean? Like and they will call
Yeah.
because this is totally like core to all that business. So yeah, I really doubt that's gonna happen. So anyways, that's it for economic news. Overall, like pretty upbeat.
Yeah.
Surprising.
The world's still spinning.
Look at that. Sometimes it does.
Cool. Well, anything else before we call it a podcast?
And that's all I got.
Well, if the world is still spinning next week, we'll catch you guys later.
Have a good one.